This out is more about staying healthy, staying injury prone? Yeah, staying injury free, staying healthy, making sure that I'm able to get to fight night in tip-top shape. You know, what I don't want to do is do such a hard session now that I get into the fight and maybe I feel a bit beat up, maybe my back's sore, maybe my legs are sore. You know, if there's any little niggles or little injuries, what I'll try and do now is nip them in the bud. So the intensity's still there. You know, I'm still getting the cardio in, I'm still getting my fitness, pads, etc. But what I do now is 2 weeks out, try and taper down on sparring, try and taper down on anything that's hurting. You know, if let's say, for example, I've got a bad hand, wind that in a little bit, try and taper down and make sure that on fight night, you know, it's 100%.
Do you think you could have done that earlier in your career, or you wouldn't have had the confidence to do that maybe?
Okay, so I think earlier in your career it's not as important because you're not necessarily getting paid as much. So let's put it into perspective now. I'm about to get what you could consider as life-changing money for one fight. If you don't make the fight, you don't get paid. If you're fighting on a regional show for 100 quid, you know, you can take the risks a little bit more because if you get injured or you get cut and you can't fight, okay, you lost out on an opportunity, but there's going to be plenty more. Whereas at the age that I'm at now, you know, I can't afford to have, let's call it a knee injury that's going to put you out for 2 years. You know, in 2 years I'll be 34. You're running out of time. So yeah, I think it just gets more important at this level. You know, if you was Conor McGregor earning multi millions, I would wrap myself up in cotton wool because, you know, it doesn't matter how hard or how well you train, if you can't make it to the fight, you're not getting paid.
How do you keep that balance of keeping a good intensity for your fight camp, but still trying to maintain that sort of level of health?
I would definitely say, as cliche as it sounds, is listening to your body. And that's where now the advantage that I've got is I've been fighting for 16 years, but I'm still in my prime. So I'm only 32 years old, which I would call now as my prime. But I've got the experience on my side, so I know exactly how my body works, how hard I should train, at what point. You know, I've had almost 30 fights now, so I know where I'm supposed to be 2 weeks out, I know where I'm supposed to be 8 weeks out. So yeah, I would just say that it's experience and time and just learning what works for you, because at the end of the day, everyone's different. You know, what works for me might not necessarily work for you, and vice versa.
You say there you know where to be 2 weeks out and 8 weeks out. Just from your perspective as actually fighting, sparring, what are the main differences you feel between that sort of time gap?
Definitely fitness. So for example, when it comes to fight night, you want to hit your peak. Now, if you're at your peak 8 weeks out and you're hitting all the fitness goals and your strength goals all then, you're not going to be at your peak, you know, on fight night. So it's impossible to just keep leveling up every time and not hit that period where your body's going, whoa, what is going on? So for me at the start of camp, I want to feel out of shape. I want to feel unfit. I want to be struggling with doing all the rounds, because then when it comes to fight week and I'm firing all cylinders, I know that I'm at my peak. And you can't maintain that, you know, you can't stay at your peak 24/7. You'd probably just die. So yeah, that's why now sometimes when I've started my fight camp, if I'm a little bit too fit, you know, I might taper down a little bit at the start, and it's all about ramping up. So come fight night, you're at that, you know, that peak potential.
Obviously, we're 2 weeks out, but you've had quite a lot go on. I'd say the last year you've had fights. Obviously, you've had your new baby. How is everything with just you in general?
Hectic, you know, obviously having 2 kids under 2. Life has definitely changed for the better. You know, my life's completely changed for the better with having them. I would say that everything's become more hectic now. Everything's more, I haven't got time just to do certain things that should take 5 minutes. I've still got to go back and do a lot of forms for the UFC that I haven't done, which I need to do, otherwise you don't get paid. But it's just hard, you know, when you've got kids obviously that need feeding and this, and I've got a dog, you know, it's keeps me very busy, very occupied, which I love. So I don't want to sound like I don't like it. I do, you know, I like being depended on. I like being needed, and I feel that it's now a new level of motivation that I didn't have, you know, 2 years ago, for example.
Do you feel like you're in a spot now, you say about coming into your prime, you've got your kids, you've obviously got your house. Do you feel like you're at a point now where in your actual home life, you're settled to where you can kick on professionally?
Yeah, I feel right now I'm very content. You know, I've got the house of my dreams. You know, by no means am I like, I don't have ambitions or goals, but I'm comfortable, man. You know, I've got 2 beautiful children that right now are healthy. I've got a wonderful wife. I've got good family around me. I'm blessed, you know. So for me now, it just makes everything else easier. Fighting for me now is second, you know, family first. Obviously the fighting brings in the money, gives me the life that I've got. You know, I wouldn't be able to afford the house I've got if it wasn't for fighting. And yeah, you know, I'm just going to see how long I can just continue living the dream and see how far I can go in this sport.
Just looking at the actual fight, what have you done, if anything, different in this camp to prepare for this opponent?
So the only really thing that I've done differently is just different sparring partners. We luckily in GB Top Team, we've got so many different styles that I have the benefit of having these taller, long-limbed guys come in. So yeah, my sparring partners for this fight have just been taller guys, long limbs, mimicking Jose Delgado, almost forgot his name, you know, throwing knees, elbows, trying to mimic his style. So obviously on fight night, I will be as accustomed to that style as possible.
When you look at him as a fighter across, what do you think he brings to the table?
I would say a variety of striking. So, you know, he uses everything. Obviously, he got a good knockout win against Hyder and Mill with a big knee, you know, up the middle. Obviously, where he's very long-limbed, he's able to use his elbows and knees a lot easier than other people. So, yeah, I've just got to watch out for what I would call those finishing moves, you know, those knockout knees, those knockout elbows. You know, he's very obviously dangerous in those areas. So, you know, best believe me, I'm training for this fight like it's a world title fight. You know, I don't underestimate anyone. And then come fight night, you know, I'm prepared for everything.
He's got some good wins. He's faced a couple of good people, but I don't think he's necessarily faced that next level of competition yet, which I probably would say is fair to put your skills on. Just to reverse that and to finish off, what do you think you bring to the table that's going to cause him problems?
I would say another level, you know, because I think his record's 10-1. His 2 UFC fights have finished so quick that we're not able to tell anything from that. You know, so he knocks out Hyder Mill with a big knee. Amazing. Was a very good knee, was a very good, flashy highlight reel finish. But that's not shown us anything. You know, his fight before he got to the UFC, or Dana White Contender Series, against, I don't know who the guy was, didn't look very good. You know, he finished the guy in the 3rd round, but he got dropped in the 1st round. The guy he was fighting, I thought, looked like poo. We haven't seen his skill set. You know, I've been fighting professionally since 2012, I think. He started professionally 2022, 10 years after me. Now, again, I'm not underestimating him by any means, but I've gone through the trenches. I've got the decision wins against people that I've completely outclassed and, you know, just shown that I'm much better. For him, we haven't seen that much because he's getting finishes very quick. But all I know is that he has never fought someone on my level, but I have fought people on his level. So, yeah, be interesting to see on fight night.
Just to sort of wrap up on that, what's the dream case scenario then come UFC 321?
Come out healthy, uninjured as well for my opponent, you know, so we both go home to our families happily, healthily, no injuries, and yeah, get obviously a finish, ideally a nice quick win, you know, get a bonus, come home, spend some money with my daughters, and yeah, try and get a big London co-main event or something like that next year.